迷えば破れるぞ。
Oh, that was Uber Arbiter by the way. Both phases, 3 seconds each. A boss that's supposed to be one of the hardest gear checks in the game, and he didn't even get a chance to fight back. And here is Uber Zesh, 2 seconds, dead before the half-bar even knew what happened. Over 60,000 of you watched the original one-shot Mage video. Some of you built it, loved it, and turned bosses into confetti with it. But some of you were skeptical at best, wondering if this build had already hit its ceiling. Honestly though, I thought the same thing, and we were all dead wrong. This is the same Blood Mage one-shot build, and nothing about this identity changed since the last video. What did change though, was discovering a single swap that kicked off a chain reaction that rewired the entire build from the ground up and turned what was already discussing into something that should definitely not be legal in the Uber endgame. And some of these changes, oh, they are actually things that literally argued against in the original video. So yeah, we're gonna talk about that too. So here is what kicked all of this off. After the original video, my crit was solid, flat damage was stacked, jewels were locked in, but the Uber bosses that were still walking away from the plasma blast, oh boy, those kept eating at me in the middle of the night. And some of you even reached out about the exact same thing. Then one of the legends in my Discord took this build and just ran with it. I'm telling you, this guy went into full Uber optimization mode. And the thing that immediately jumped out of me in his setup was a single chess piece that was juicing his skills levels way beyond what I thought mattered. That's when it hit me. And honestly, it was a little embarrassing. Plus levels to skills was the single biggest damage multiplier that I've been sleeping on this entire time. Now yeah, that sounds basic, I know. But here's the interesting thing. The plus levels philosophy, that's just the foundation, baby. The biggest single damage jump came from a swap so counterintuitive that I literally told you not to do it in the original video. Let me show you what I mean. The first major change was dropping Shock Burst rounds to pick up Tame Beast, a companion skill on a crossbow sniper build. Yeah, I know exactly how that sounds, but stay with me, my brother. The companion itself is not here to fight. It's only here to exist, because as long as you have a companion active, you unlock a support gem called MINION PACT. You slot that into Plasma Blast where Ambrosia used to sit, and the damage spike is genuinely absurd. We are talking a multiplier so large it makes Ambrosia look like a warm-up act. The tooltip alone make me do a double take. Now I'll be honest with you, this thing ain't cheap to run. It's gonna cost you 60 spirit to run, and with all the heroes in our kit, sustaining it becomes impossible without making a trade-off. So you got two options. Option 1, you swap modes depending on the content. For mapping, you disable the companion entirely. With all the plus level stacking we are talking about later, regular content already melts without Minion Pact. But when it's time for an Uber boss, you disable one herald, activate the companion, walk into the arena, then go beast mode. The only annoying part is, when it's time for you to reactivate your herald afterwards, it usually means going into your skill settings and reactivating it in both weapon sets again. It's tedious. So I usually only do this for Uber bosses. Plasma Blast is still going to melt faces without your companion, my dude. I mean, just take a look at this pinnacle boss encounter alone without my companion. Or a juiced up temple using only galvanic shards to squash bosses. Yeah, you get it. And this is what I actually do myself. Because who in the hell is going to remember doing this every time you run a map when you got 10 other maps waiting for you in your inventory? Then we have option 2, which I call the rich kid route. Here, you stack enough spirit to run everything at once. Quality on the TAME Beast gem reduces his spirit reservation by a solid amount, so if you can hit that threshold, you never have to swap anything. And as a bonus, you can even slot minion pack into galvanic shards for juicier mapping damage too. Now if you never tamed the beast before, well, it's actually simpler than it sounds. Here's the quick rundown. Step 1. Grab a level 9 or 10 uncut skill gem. You want to use a lower level gem here because the stat requirements get ridiculous the higher you go. Step 2. Turn off any auto-targeting skills like the heralds in our case, so you don't accidentally kill what you are trying to capture. Step 3. Head over to the infested barrens in Act 3, and once you get there, find a rare monster to activate the TAME Beast skill. Kill it, and that's it. You got yourself a companion, my friend. Now the companion you get inherits the rare monster's modifiers. So if you want to min-max this, hover over the rare before you capture them and look for useful auras. Ideally, you want to have a haste aura, but this can take hours of resetting. I personally got tired and settled for an energy shield aura to get extra tanking in Uber boss arenas. I'll leave a link in the description so you can check out all the possible modifiers and hunt for whatever suits you best. And if you don't get what you want on the first try, just reset the checkpoint and farm to your heart's content. Now the companion swap didn't just give us minion pact, it also kicked off a chain reaction that handed us an entirely free damage layer. And this is the part that made me fall in love with build optimization all over again. Oi, walk through this with me step by step because this is genuinely one of the most satisfying sequences I've ever stumbled into. Ambrosia is gone from Plasma Blast. That means your flask charters are not getting eaten anymore. And because your flasks aren't getting drained, you don't actually need a standard mana flask to sustain yourself. So you slot in LAVIANGA'S Spirits instead, a unique flask that actively regenerates your mana over time. But here's the real reason why we want it. LAVIANGA keeps you permanently under the effect of a flask, even without pressing a single button. And that permanently active flask effect, it triggers the Crystal Elixir passive node, which gives you a massive elemental damage boost that directly scales your bleed magnitude. The best part is this happens all the time, and for free. You just have a giant damage multiplier running in the background and doing the Lord's work because you remove one support gem. But the dominos don't stop at the flasks. The passive tree itself got a serious overhaul that supports all of this, and that's where the plus levels philosophy really start compounding. The ascendancy remains completely unchanged. Blood Mage was already doing exactly what this build needs. What did change is the jewel situation. We pretty much went from 5 sockets to 8. All sapphires, my dude, all crit chance, and ailment magnitude. That's 3 more raw multipliers than the original build had, and you feel every single one of them. But the real star here is Prism of Belief. This diamond jewel gives us 3 levels of Plasma Blast. 3 free levels from a single socket, baby. And when you stack that on top of all of the other level scalings across your gear, regular bosses just stop existing. Because Plasma Blast hits so far above their health bar, the fight is usually over before they finish spawning. This is exactly why the companion swap is pure overkill for anything below Uber tier. You simply don't need minion pact when the base hit already erases them. Now, remember how in the original build, you would drop elemental weakness on a boss spawn point, and the curse will vanish before the boss even finishes animation? Or the boss will just casually walk out of your little curse portal like he has somewhere better to be? That's all gone now. Your curse weapon set passives now pump curse size, duration, and magnitude for elemental weakness. This gives you a bigger zone of effect, lasts longer, and hits way harder. Then your DPS weapon set passives scale all the attack skills linked to your main crossbow. This is literally free damage node on both weapon sets with 0 trade-offs. And speaking of curses, there is one more swap that changed how this build actually feels in deep endgame maps. This one is short, but it might save your life in deep endgame maps. For mapping, I swap elemental weakness on Blasphemy over to temporal chains. And the logic is simple. At this point in the build, mapping damage is beyond overkill. Everything dies regardless. But what actually kills you in deep endgame maps is getting swarmed by things you can outrun. And let's be honest with each other here. This character's movement speed is mid. So if you can't make yourself go any faster, well, how about making everything else slower? Temporal chains on Blasphemy means every enemy that gets near you is dragging their feet through mud while you casually shotgun them with galvanic shards. In deep endgame, this is genuinely the difference between clearing the map and becoming the confetti instead of making it. Elemental weakness stays for bossing though. You still self-cast it on the spawn point as always, but curses and passives are only part of the equation. The supporting gear though is where the plus levels philosophy hits every single slot, and where I owe over 60,000 of you an apology. Before we get into the specific slots, here's the mindset shift that drives every gear decision in this version. Mapping is no longer the bottleneck. Everything already dies. The only thing that matters now is pushing your plasma blast high enough to delete uber bosses, and every slot here serves that specific goal. Let's start with the helmet. Look man, in the original video, I told you this. For your helmet, some people will tell you to grab the Vertex Tribal Mask. However, this will only help you if you can get it double corrupted with plus levels of skills. And just take a look at what something like this is going to cost you. But here I am wearing the Vertex now. See, the moment plus levels became the build's entire identity, this helmet became absolutely non-negotiable. I was completely wrong here. And you can roast me in the comments, I genuinely deserve it. Because plus levels of skills on this baby does criminally underrated things depending on the build is used for. And yes, plus 4 levels of all skills exist on the trade. But it also costs more than my rent, so plus 3 here is the sweet spot. Stack crit chance on it and call it a day. The amulet shifts into a defensive role since you lost all that helmet energy shield. Spirit and projectile levels are still mandatory here. But now, you also want to stack percent maximum energy shield, global defenses, and all the resistances if you can afford it. For the body armor, we swap to a sacrificial regalia to add more level to all corrupted skills. And as you guessed it, we switch to a corrupted plasma blast and galvanic shards to benefit from this. You can easily do this by grabbing a level 20 gem, maxing the quality on it, and using a Val Orb and an Omen of Corruption. But if you are anything like me, always fighting the odds against RNGesus, just buy one from trade my dude. We also upgraded to the biggest damage crossbow we can afford. In my case, for full transparency, I spent a mirror on it. And yes, that's probably overkill. But I wanted to see how far the damage ceiling of this build could actually be pushed. And brother, I was not disappointed. No, you don't need to spend your life savings on this, but if you got the juice, treat yourself. Now I know I previously advised going for plus levels for attacks as an alternative to projectile levels because it also benefits your heralds. But since at this point in the endgame mapping is no longer your problem, what is going to ruin your day is barely tickling a boss with your plasma blast, running out of life flasks, and doing laps around the arena praying for a miracle. Plus 7 levels to projectile skills is a massive DPS boost you simply cannot overlook anymore. Also, because we're running 2 weapon set passive 3s now, you obviously need a second weapon equipped. And even though you can slot anything in there, I will highly recommend grabbing a Last Lament crossbow. It comes packed with a Requiem skill that hits like a truck, and it's your insurance policy for rare cases a boss survives your opening shot. I personally have never had to lean on it, since the main crossbow chews through everything, but it's always nice knowing it's there for quick cleanups. As for the belt, yeah, I dropped the Headhunter.
Torches! Get your torches!
I know, but listen man, Darkness Enthroned with a Wolf Idol, plus a Rune of Cruelty, and with 100% increased effectiveness, it doesn't turn you into a raid boss after killing a rare. But it is flat out better for what this build actually needs at the uber level. Look, sometimes boring simply wins, and this one is one of those times. For runes, every slot got swapped to magnitude increasing runes wherever possible. The full breakdown is in a planner linked in the description, and this is the kind of detail that's better referenced than recited, but don't sleep on that. Now all this firepower is great, but it means nothing if you don't know how to actually prep for an uber boss fight. And that prep work is where this build earns this title back. The mapping rotation remains completely unchanged. Same shotgun with galvanic shards, same heralds cleaning up everything on and off screen, same effortless clear speed. Because if you ain't broken, you don't fix it my brother. Where this build earned its title is a uber boss prep. And it's a short checklist really. Disable 1 herald if you don't have enough spirit, activate your companion, walk into the arena. From there, it's the same execution sequence you already know. Drop elemental weakness on the spawn point, and thanks to those weapon set passives, your bigger, longer lasting curse zone will actually still be there when the boss arrives. Buff with emergency reload if you need to, charge plasma blast, fire when you see the red glint, and then you just watch. Uber Arbiter doesn't get a second phase monologue. Uber Zesh doesn't get to do whatever the hell he normally does. Nuh-uh, not today, Satan. And honestly, that feeling of when you know the fight is already decided the moment the beam connected, when the health bar is just catching up to something that was already over, that is the entire fantasy this build was designed for. And now, it finally works flawlessly on the hardest content in the game. So let's take a step back for a second. This build started as a discovery, one illegal interaction between Lightning and Bleed that had absolutely no business working as well as it did. Then over 60,000 of you turned it into something real. And now, it's deleting Uber endgame bosses and Omega juiced up tempos faster than most builds can clear a pack of trash mobs. Every change like the Minion Pact, the domino chain effect, the plus levels philosophy, and yes, the vertex I told you not to buy, all of it fits the same idea. Make the biggest hit possible and let the bleed handle the rest. If this build update video helped you push your one-shot mage into Uber territory, drop a like and tell me in the comments, what was your biggest kill? And if you haven't built this thing yet, what you waiting for, my dude? The full build planner and the mobilities companion guides are linked in the description. So until I see you again in the endgame, stay stylish, stay untouchable, and may your crits always be juicy.